You're listening to Overwatch League Daily, your daily source for Overwatch League news, scores, and more. Here's your host, KickedTripod.
Good morning, Overwatch League fans, and welcome to Overwatch League Daily, your daily source for Overwatch League news, scores, and opinions. I am John, KickedTripod Horstman, and here's your Overwatch League Daily episode for December 22nd, 2017. On today's show, I'm joined by professional Overwatch caster and analyst Jake ZeNox Brander to discuss support play in Overwatch League. In the past two episodes, we've discussed some of the finer points of DPS and tank duos in Overwatch League. Naturally, the next step is to discuss Overwatch League's support players through the lens of the inaugural preseason. One of the most exciting parts of the preseason was watching how great support players would perform on the big stage. Which brings us to today as we discuss the support role in Overwatch League and its significance. I'm joined by Overwatch caster and analyst Jake ZeNox Brander to discuss some of the greater points of support play through the preseason. ZeNox, let's start by discussing the current support landscape in Overwatch. Currently, most of the support discussion revolves around a team Zenyatta. Why do you think that is?
Hey John, looking at other esports that have a class/role-based system, generally the support role is quite unappealing to play due to the impact it may bring to the team and the respective game. But in Overwatch, the support role is extremely valuable and honestly can make some of the most game-changing plays in Overwatch. We just don't generally see these game-changing plays as often due to the observing usually being quite heavily focused on DPS, especially during team fights. But the two heroes in the support role at the moment, to be honest, that are in the spotlight is Mercy and Zenyatta, and they've become the meta essentially for the support positions because of the amount of impact that they can bring to fights based off their ultimates and of course their general abilities. And whilst Mercy has been a huge talking point recently for good or for bad, Zenyatta himself has been in a bit of a spotlight for quite some time, basically since Ana's received her nerfs quite a while back. Zenyatta, in my opinion, has been the go-to aggressive support. And I say aggressive support because unlike Mercy and some other support heroes in the game, Zenyatta can apply DPS pressure with his orbs, he can get picks, and of course debuff with his Discord orb, makes him a very versatile support. And all while still applying his healing, of course, and charging up an extremely strong ultimate in Transcendence. This does make Zenyatta a very, very powerful hero to have on a team. And if you can have a player who can play him to say the degree of Ryuji Hong, well, I mean, there's not much more that needs to be said about that. It would be an extremely valuable asset. In saying that, though, Zenyatta is really easy to kill, and this is one of his biggest weaknesses, I guess. He's got low life, no movement abilities, and it makes him a prime target to jump on for, say, a dive-orientated team. And this makes the positioning of the Zenyatta even more crucial to a support player than possibly some other support heroes that are in the game. And obviously, if a team's Zenyatta can overcome this weakness of a hero, they'll prove to be a pretty big asset to the team compared to, say, another support player who maybe is dying a little bit too frequently on Zenyatta to really have any impact, thus becoming a bit of a burden for that respective team to have. And this brings us to a player like Ryuji Hong as an example, who is honestly, in my opinion, the best support player in the game and has the ability to master heroes like Zenyatta and Ana, who, relatively speaking, don't have movement abilities at all, and he can still fully utilize their strengths to have a massive impact, but most importantly, he stays alive more frequently than other support heroes. And I think a bad way to discuss support strengths is just looking at numbers. Overall healing, it's nice, it's cute to have high stats, but it shouldn't be an overall measurement of how good a player is at a support hero. I'd rather have a Zenyatta on my team who is getting, say, an opening pick to create a 6v5 scenario than a Zenyatta who is way too focused on applying his healing orb and looking at his numbers.
So you already mentioned that Jae Hong stands out as your best support player in the world, but besides him, who are the best Overwatch players in Overwatch League in the support role, and what do you think really made them so good?
Definitely Shaz of the Los Angeles Gladiators, 100% Shaz. This guy was insane over the course of the Overwatch League preseason, especially against the London Spitfire. At one point he got a 3k by himself on Lijiang Tower as Zenyatta. This was at 99% as well, and won the series for the Gladiators from that game. It was tied 2-2. His positioning was top notch. The timing on his Transcendence were pretty much perfect from all the action I saw from him. Throw in the ability to constantly pick up kills while providing a lot of healing, and really the Gladiators have themselves a pretty huge talent on their hands going forward into the Overwatch League season. While a lot of Zenyatta players kind of got noticed a bit more than the Mercy players, I still thought Chips was amazing for Dallas Fuel. Ever reliable self on Mercy, great usage of Valkyrie and his ability to stay alive while moving around as Mercy. A trait that looks easy when watching it, but at such a high level of play, especially in the Overwatch League, it can be very difficult to stay alive while moving from player to player. And he, of course, has got that master down. He's been playing the Mercy for a very long time, and you could just see that really whenever Dallas needed to get the double res from Valkyrie, he'd always choose the right targets, time them to perfection, and it really would just keep the fight either in their momentum or it would turn the fight into Dallas's favor. So definitely Shaz and Chips were the two standout supports in my eyes. And there was a lot more, really, when you're playing at such a high level, which is the Overwatch League, almost all of the supports are just great players overall. And, could be sitting here all day naming them all. I think Unco was definitely great, but he's a name that we've heard all before. So I think choosing a player like Shaz from Finland, who hasn't really been in the spotlight as much compared to some of the other top tier support players like Chips, Unco, Ryuji Hong, etc. He's definitely a player to keep an eye out for, that's for sure.
We also saw some teams struggle with their support role. I'm immediately thinking of the Florida Mayhem as a team who really struggled to get comfortable in that support role. What other teams, in your opinion, struggled at the support role over the preseason? And what were you seeing them do or not do that really set that apart?
Well, I think in terms of teams struggling in the support role, it can come down to a lot of different factors. Most importantly, the biggest fact is that a lot of these players are coming together for the first time. And for support players, a lot of it comes down to communication, positioning. Where does your teammates like to position and play? What are their play styles like? Especially possibly for some Mercy players who are sort of tagging along behind some of their DPS and they're not sure their movements quite just yet or where they want to go to, and then obviously having to communicate all that. And so that's one of the bigger factors, and obviously some of these players are moving over from overseas, which can cause issues by itself. And I think touching on the Florida Mayhem, one of the biggest things that stood out was a moment on Dorado where Zebazai used his Valkyrie to bring back Logix twice inside of 5 seconds, who was playing a Widowmaker. Not generally the biggest target that you really want to be bringing back is the Widowmaker, but especially when he's got maybe 4 enemies on top of him and then you still bring him back twice, maybe not the best play right there. And so you're going to see these mistakes throughout the preseason, and you'll see mistakes as always throughout the regular season as well. Mistakes do happen, and I think the preseason is a way to sort of say, okay, these are our mistakes, we can then work on them and improve. And for the support role players, a lot of it comes down to working as a team. Obviously the DPS players have got their aim, usage of their ultimates, etc., that can make the impact that they can sort of practice on in their own time. And besides, say, maybe a Zenyatta and you want to click heads with your orbs, a lot of it does come down to working with your teammates and practicing with your teammates in scrims, positioning, tactics, all of those sorts of aspects that maybe these teams in the Overwatch League preseason haven't quite had the amount of time as they would have liked to. And so any sort of struggles could be sort of noted down to just that aspect, as these players are brand new pretty much to playing with each other for the most part, outside of maybe 2 to 3 teams, etc. So I think any struggles will be alleviated over with time.
Let's shift over to Moira for a second. And now that Moira is in the mix, we didn't see her get played a whole lot in the preseason, but when we did see her, there was some mastery there. Do you think Moira will play a bigger role going into the inaugural season?
We'll see a little bit more of Moira in the inaugural season, but that's not to say that she's going to be replacing either Zenyatta or Mercy anytime soon, and of course that depends on buffs and nerfs, but I think Moira's kit is in a pretty decent place. She does have the movement skill ability, she's got some great healing, and she also does provide quite a bit of DPS as well. Her ultimate is a little bit tricky in a sense, Coalescence obviously providing both the healing and the DPS. It can make it quite interesting in terms of choosing when you want to use that ultimate and also where you want to use that ultimate as well. So there is choice there with Moira. I think one of the biggest concerns for me is her actual healing output though. When that meter does start to go down, she can lose quite a bit of healing output. And it also is a little bit tricky at the moment knowing if you're actually healing your players without any sort of notifier. And so I think that's one thing that Blizzard definitely needs to add is sort of a tick or a sound notification that when you hit your teammate with a heal, you should be able to know that you're actually healing them without maybe then overhealing, etc. So I feel like possibly there's some quality of life changes that could definitely make Moira more impactful. But right now, as a whole, her kit is still quite versatile and is used on certain points. Control point, for example, she can definitely be played there. She is quite tricky to kill and track down. And I think that can definitely provide her with a bit of a strength in terms of where to be playing her. And as teams sort of keep trying her and keep trying her in different points and at different maps, you will start to see her pop up every now and then. Either as a stall hero at times on assault maps. We'll have seen her come out as she is, again, quite difficult to kill. She's got that movement skill. She can get to the assault point. So as a stalling hero support, she's actually one of the better stalling hero supports in the game right now. So you're going to be seeing her quite a bit, possibly there on assault. And as I said, on control point, you might see her a little bit too for that movement speed, the healing, and the overall damage. And I think that, as I said, over time, we will see her quite a bit more.
Last question here, and then we'll let you go. I was really impressed by Sleepy from the San Francisco Shock. Before Overwatch League, he was mostly unknown. What did you take away from his play over the preseason?
Yeah, Sleepy did play on Tempo Storm at the beginning of 2017, though, but after leaving Tempo Storm, he did fade away a little bit from the spotlight until getting picked up by San Francisco, which quite a few people were surprised with that selection. He was fragging out low throughout the preseason and showed he was extremely deadly as a Zenyatta player. And the biggest highlight for me was his use of Transcendence. He was so aggressive when using it, liking to use it very early in fights rather than holding onto it. And if you hold onto it for too long, some of your teammates can die and then it's sort of a waste if you use it after one or two have died. So he was happy to use it aggressively. And had a very quick reaction time when needing to use it in dire situations as well. So I thought his overall use of Transcendence was extremely high level, and his positioning coming out of Transcendence as well was exceptional, rarely dying after coming out of using his ultimate. And in fact, his positioning in general was a very big attribute of his, being able to get so many kills and yet not die that often. I mean, that's just incredible. Usually as a Zenyatta, if you're looking to get those kills and you're trying to get those headshots, maybe your positioning is a little bit aggressive and it does open yourself up to getting picked off. So for him to get those kills, to frag out so much and yet rarely die that often, especially at crucial moments, very big attribute to have. And my favorite moment of his was a moment on Dorado against Florida where Sleepy got a headshot kill onto Logix, who was playing Widowmaker. And so whenever a Zenyatta is out sniping a Widow, I mean, to me, that's a pretty good sign that he's quite good. So that was a pretty nice moment for him. I did feel like against Florida as a whole, he was generally on top of Zupe and Zebazai, and matched up really well against Unco from the LA Valiant as well. So that was a very good duel between those two Zenyatas. I'd highly recommend going back and watching that series between San Francisco Shock and LA Valiant, and just keeping an eye on Unco and Sleepy playing the Zenyatas. It was a great duel. But Sleepy can also play Mercy when required, such as when his partner Duck switches to Lucio on control point maps, which is something that we saw a little bit of San Francisco doing. Sleepy's obviously then required to play the Mercy, and he does play at a very high level. Great uses of his Valkyrie, the targets that he revives as well, able to stay alive. Very, very high player on Mercy as well. He did struggle a little bit against London, but to be fair, really the entire team of San Francisco was poor against London, and at the end of the day, there's only so much that one player can do in that instance. When the entire team is just struggling, there's only so much you can really ask of Sleepy there. But overall, I thought Sleepy had a very decent preseason. That's not to say he was perfect or the best overall support player over the course of the preseason, but he showed that he shouldn't be underrated anymore. Just because he was a bit of an unknown coming into the Overwatch League, I think that he's definitely shown now that he has plenty of talent to showcase over the course of the inaugural season, and I definitely can't wait to see what he's going to show us.
A huge thank you to ZeNox for joining me on the show today. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at ZenoxOW. That's ZENOXOW. I thought his insight was really amazing. On tomorrow's episode, I'll hopefully be joined by Alex, aka Gilfrost, aka Left Guy. He is the CPO of Carbon Entertainment and an Overwatch analyst for Contenders. On tomorrow's episode, we'll be discussing the new Path to Pro changes. I will put an asterisk next to this, though. It is my last day of my honeymoon tomorrow, and there's a small chance my flight will take off before I can post the episode. So there is a tiny chance that there will not be an episode tomorrow. If that's the case, it'll be 2 days from now. Remember, you can find this show on any of your favorite podcast outlets, including iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. We're on YouTube too. Make sure to click on the link in the show notes to find us. And if you want to stay in touch, email me at overwatchleaguedaily@gmail.com, tweet me at OWLDailyShow, or join our Discord at discord.me/OWLDailyShow. That's going to do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow, hopefully, for another episode of Overwatch League Daily.